It started with a receipt. Not lipstick on a collar, not a half-whispered phone call in the night, not some mysterious cologne scent clinging to her clothes. A receipt, crumpled in her coat pocket, mixed in with used tissues and a cough drop wrapper. I wasn't looking for anything. I wasn't suspicious, not yet. I was just grabbing her coat to take it to the dry cleaner because it had a coffee stain on the sleeve and she had an important meeting the next day. She told me that herself, tapped her nails on the countertop, stared at her laptop, barely looked up. "Babe, can you drop this off tomorrow? Big meeting with the regional VP." That's what she said. Cold, clipped, impatient. I should have noticed that tone earlier. I should have paid more attention to how I'd become background noise. The receipt was from a hotel. Local. Not even across town, but less than 10 minutes from our house. 2 drinks, 1 appetizer, 1 room. Room 214. Timestamped 11:43 p.m. Same night she told me she was staying late for quarterly reports. I stood there in the kitchen holding that scrap of paper like it was radioactive. The refrigerator hummed. A bird chirped outside. Everything normal. Except I wasn't. I didn't confront her right away. I folded the receipt and slid it into my wallet. Then I stared at her that night across the dinner table. She chewed too slowly, asked too few questions. Her phone buzzed twice and she never flipped it over. I started noticing details, how fast she locked her screen, how suddenly her showers became longer, how often she started falling asleep on the couch while clutching that damn phone like it was oxygen. It was like I had been asleep and now someone had yanked me into the middle of a war zone. So I tested her. I told her I had to head out of town for work, a training conference that didn't exist. I watched her nod without asking details. She didn't even pretend to care. That silence was worse than any screaming match. But I didn't go anywhere. I stayed local, booked a room at a dingy motel 2 exits away, sat in the dark with a cold cup of vending machine coffee, staring at the ceiling. Then I drove back home the next night, parked 3 houses down, waited. 10 p.m. No movement. 11 p.m. Still quiet. Then at 11:17 p.m., a car pulled up. Not an Uber. Not a friend. I watched her walk out the front door in a coat she hadn't worn in months. The black one she used to wear on our date nights, back when she cared what I thought. She got into the passenger seat like it was nothing. Like it wasn't her house. Like it wasn't her husband sleeping or pretending to sleep. Under that roof. I followed them. I followed them to the same hotel from the receipt. Same damn place. She didn't even change locations. They didn't even bother. And as I sat across the street, engine off, heart pounding like a war drum, I realized something that made my throat tighten in a way I'd never felt before. This wasn't the first time. This was routine. This wasn't guiltless temptation. This was rehearsed, refined, familiar. They disappeared inside. I didn't follow. I didn't want to see their faces up close. Not yet. I didn't want to hear his voice or catch the sound of her laugh echoing through a hallway that was supposed to be reserved for strangers, not betrayals. I went home. I sat in our kitchen with the lights off and the receipt spread out in front of me. And I waited. Not for her to come back. I waited for the version of myself that could handle this. For the version of me that wouldn't fall apart the moment she walked through the door smelling like another man's cologne with that same important meeting look on her face. I waited for the man I'd need to become to look her in the eye and not break. She came back at 3:22 a.m. Quiet. Careful. Shoes in hand, jacket over one arm. She didn't see me in the shadows. She tiptoed upstairs. Slid into bed. I didn't sleep. Because tomorrow I was going to ask her one question. And I knew before she even opened her mouth she was going to lie. And that lie would be the match that would burn down everything. She was making eggs when I stepped into the kitchen the next morning. Calm as a surgeon, like nothing had happened. Hair tied up, wearing one of those oversized sweatshirts she used to steal from my side of the closet, now worn like armor. She looked over her shoulder and smiled fake, tight, like she was checking a box. "Morning," she said, flipping a spatula without turning fully around. I watched her for a full 10 seconds before speaking. 10 seconds of silence that felt like a loaded gun on the table. "You sleep okay?" I asked. She nodded. "Yeah. You?" I didn't answer. I pulled the chair out slowly, sat down at the table, and placed the receipt in the center like a challenge. "I found this in your coat." She paused mid-scramble. Her wrist twitched, not much, just a fraction, but it was enough. Then she turned around. Casual. Eyes blank. What is it? Don't play with me. I didn't say it out loud. I just stared at her, and for a second, just a second, her expression flickered. The curtain shifted. You went to the hotel again, I said, voice steady but low. Last night. With him. She blinked. Then gave me a slow, almost impressed kind of nod. Like I had solved a puzzle she didn't think I had the brains to figure out. You followed me? I didn't answer. She stepped away from the stove, arms folded, leaning against the counter like this was a casual debate, not the edge of a cliff. I was going to tell you, she said. Liar. That was her first instinct. Not apology. Not fear. Control. I stood up, calm boiling just below the surface. Really? When? Before or after the next receipt? She rolled her eyes. Rolled her eyes. It's not like that. You don't even know the full story. You mean the part where you lie to my face and sneak out at night like this is some teenage drama? I took a step forward. Tell me who he is. She shrugged. Why does it matter? I laughed. Because it was either that or throw something through the window. Because you invited a stranger into our lives. Into my life. And you didn't even have the decency to hide it properly. Her voice shifted then. Sharper. Defensive. You've been emotionally gone for years. Don't act like I betrayed some perfect fairy tale. I froze. The way she said that, like this was my fault. Like she had to explain this away, justify it. Years, I repeated. 15 years together. And you break it for what? Cheap hotel nights and someone who texts you that you still smell like him? You think that makes you a victim? She flinched then. That line hit her. I saw it. But she didn't back down. I needed something real. I shook my head. Disgusted. Then you should have had the guts to leave before crawling into someone else's bed. Her jaw tightened. Maybe I didn't want to blow up the kids' lives. You already did. We stood there in that kitchen, two people with 1,000 shared mornings behind us and nothing left in front. Her hands were trembling now. Not from fear. From fury. She wasn't sorry. She was cornered. I turned and walked out of the kitchen. Not to cool down. Not to cry. I needed air. I needed to think. Because now I wasn't just dealing with betrayal, I was looking into the eyes of someone who had rewritten the story of US without telling me and handed me the edited version with a smile. And I wasn't going to be a silent character in someone else's fantasy. The next 48 hours were surgical. I didn't yell. I didn't beg. I didn't cry. That part of me had already been ripped out the moment she said I needed something real, as if the 15 years we built together were just set dressing. What she didn't realize is that when you destroy a man like that, you don't get to control what he becomes after. She went cold too. Kept things surface level. We didn't speak beyond logistics. Who would take the kids to school, who'd cook, who'd do the groceries? She acted like I was a roommate she'd grown tired of, cordial, fake, detached. But I could see it. She thought I'd implode. That I'd break down, scream, maybe even grovel. And when I didn't, that scared her more than any fight ever could. She started snooping through my phone, asking if I was okay out of nowhere, leaving her laptop open on the kitchen counter like she wanted me to accidentally find something. Maybe she was trying to provoke a reaction. Maybe she was trying to see if there was any of the old me left. But what she didn't get is that the old me died the second she walked back into our house smelling like someone else. So I adapted. I installed cameras. Quietly. Hidden ones. She had no clue. I placed one in the hallway, one in the office, one in the garage. I wasn't looking for revenge. I was looking for proof. Not for the courts, no. For myself. I needed the full truth, start to end. Every lie she'd fed me, every time she said she was working late or going to therapy or meeting her sister, I wanted to catch it. Frame it. Remember it. Then came Thursday. She dressed up. More than usual. Hair done, makeup clean, subtle perfume. She said she was going to a women's networking dinner. But her phone buzzed before she left. She didn't hear it. I did. It lit up on the table. No name. Just a preview. You'll look good on top again. Everything inside me went silent. Not rage. Just numb purpose. I took a screenshot with my own phone. Then I let her leave. 2 hours later, the garage camera caught her sneaking back in. Not from the front door. From the side. Clothes different. Makeup smudged. She wasn't even trying to hide it anymore. She dropped her heels near the laundry machine, wiped off her lipstick with a paper towel, and walked into the house like she hadn't just sold out our entire marriage for the second time that week. So I printed the screenshots, laid them out on the kitchen table with the hotel receipt from before. I sat at the end of the table waiting for her to come down in the morning. She looked at the table, then at me. "You've been spying on me?" Wrong thing to say. I stood slowly, calm but deliberate. "You've been lying, sleeping around, humiliating me, and you're asking me about trust. I didn't sleep with anyone tonight. That message says different. It's not what it looks like." I stepped closer. "Then explain it. Right now." She hesitated, blinked hard, took a breath, and then she did something that caught me completely off guard. She smiled. Quiet, mocking smile. Not a trace of shame. "I guess now you finally know. Good. I'm tired of pretending." I didn't move, didn't blink. Just watched her stand there like she'd won something. She picked up the papers, scanned them, then tossed them back on the table like they were meaningless. "You want a divorce?" she asked. That was the moment I saw it. She didn't think I'd survive without her. She thought I was too passive, too dependent, too soft to handle the storm. But I was already out of the storm, and she hadn't even noticed. I looked her dead in the eye. "No. I want you to live in the mess you made." And I walked out. She didn't follow me when I walked out that morning. She didn't call, didn't text, nothing. I took my car, drove until I was out of the suburbs and into the city, parked near a diner I hadn't been to in years, sat in a booth alone with a burnt coffee and a clock ticking too loud above the counter. I wasn't running, I was breathing for the first time. But when I came home later that night, something had shifted. The living room was spotless. Too spotless. Throw pillows arranged perfectly, candles lit, music playing softly. Like she was setting a stage for a show only she believed was still running. She came out of the kitchen holding 2 wine glasses, smiling. "I figured we should talk," she said. Like she hadn't blown up the world less than 24 hours ago. I said nothing, just watched her as she tried to re-enter the role of wife, swaying slightly, wearing that silk blouse I bought her 2 birthdays ago, the one she never wore for me again after year 12. "You blindsided me," she said softly, handing me a glass. "You could have just talked to me before going full detective." "I did talk to you," I replied. "You just lied every single time." She sat down, crossed her legs, tilted her head like she was analyzing me. "Do you want to work through this?" It was so clean, so manipulative. Not regret. Strategy. She didn't want me. She wanted her image back. Her perfect little life where she held all the power. And now that she saw me slip the leash, she was scrambling. "Why?" I asked. "Because I didn't scream? Because I didn't fall apart like you expected." That rattled her. She stood abruptly, walked to the window, then back again, pacing. "You're twisting everything. You were never present for me." That line, again, like I was the villain in her story. Like my silence, my stability, my loyalty had somehow made her cheat. "You want to flip the script?" I said, standing too. "Fine. Let's play your game." I walked past her into the office, grabbed a folder from the drawer she never touched, dropped it on the coffee table. Inside, printed screenshots, text logs, camera footage timestamps. Every lie, every sneak out, every word she thought would stay hidden. She opened the folder and flipped through it like it was homework she hadn't studied for. "You're crazy," she muttered. "No," I said. "I'm prepared." She didn't speak. Not for a full minute. Then came the shift. "I'll get a lawyer," she said. "Already got one." She blinked, stunned, for the first time off balance. She wasn't leading this anymore. I was. And she hated it. "You think this will make you feel better?" she snapped. "No," I said, voice flat. "But it'll make sure the next version of you thinks twice before playing me." That broke her. Not into tears. Not into guilt. Into fury. Pure, raw rage. "You're nothing without me," she hissed. "You wouldn't last a month on your own." I smiled. "Then let's test that theory." And I left her standing there, surrounded by evidence and silence. She didn't know it yet, but the world she thought she controlled was already slipping through her fingers. It didn't take long for her to strike back. 3 days after I dropped the folder on the table, she weaponized the one thing she still had access to: perception. She didn't try to defend herself, not to me. She started painting the narrative outside these walls. Friends, family, mutual circles. A slow, silent campaign where I was the emotionally distant husband, the absent father, the cold man who just gave up on his marriage. It was like watching a house burn while the arsonist told the neighbors I lit the match. I found out when my sister called. She said, "You've been shutting down for months," she told me over the phone. "Said you stopped talking. Stopped trying. Is any of that true?" I didn't respond. Not with explanations. Not with defenses. I just let the silence speak. Because that was her play now, twist the truth just enough to seem believable. No scandal. No smoking gun. Just enough distortion to paint me as the architect of our collapse. So I changed strategy. I stopped trying to expose her lies. I started letting them unravel naturally. That weekend, I invited her parents over. Casual lunch. She agreed, smug, probably assuming I was trying to win them back to appear calm and civil. I wasn't. Her father asked how we were holding up. I said we were navigating some issues. Nothing more. I didn't raise my voice. Didn't accuse. But then, over coffee, I casually mentioned the hotel receipts. The cameras. The texts. No drama. Just the facts. She choked on her drink. Eyes wide. Voice shrill. "You're trying to embarrass me?" "No," I said, still calm. "You've done that yourself." Her mother didn't speak. Her father stared at her like he'd just realized he didn't know his own daughter. And she lost it. "Why are you doing this?" she snapped after they left, slamming the door shut behind them. "What do you want from me?" "I want you to see who you are without the lies." Her face contorted, not with guilt, but with panic. She was slipping, losing the narrative, losing the version of herself she'd spent years constructing. Then came her counterstrike. The next morning, I woke up to a lawyer's letter on the kitchen counter. She'd filed first, claimed abandonment, emotional neglect, said I'd exhibited controlling behavior. I laughed. It wasn't funny, but it was predictable. That night, I met with my own lawyer. I gave him everything: videos, receipts, texts, voice memos I'd started recording. Not to win. I didn't care about winning anymore. I cared about the truth sitting in the daylight, not buried under her performance. And then I made one final move before things could spiral further. I called a meeting with her. Just her. At the dining table where we'd once signed birthday cards and filled out school permission slips together. She sat down, arms folded, cold stare. I placed a pen and a single page in front of her. An agreement. No smearing. No dragging the kids through the mud. No public lies. "You sign this," I said, "and I won't bring everything to court. We do this clean. Quiet. For them." She laughed, sharp and bitter. "You think I'm scared of you now?" "No," I said. "I think you're scared of who you become without someone to lie to." She stared at me for a long time. And then she signed. She signed the agreement, but she never accepted it. There's a difference between surrender and silence. I knew the moment her pen lifted off the paper that it wasn't the end. It was just the pause between storms. Because she didn't want peace, she wanted control. And when she couldn't have it through charm or deception, she turned to destruction. First came the forgetfulness. She forgot to pick up the kids from soccer. Left them waiting in the rain while she sat 2 blocks away scrolling on her phone. Said she thought I had them that day. I didn't yell. I just picked them up, got them home, dried their hair with towels, and let her walk in 30 minutes later, pretending nothing happened. Then came the invasions. I changed the passwords to the bank accounts. She called me an abuser. I moved into the guest room. She told the kids I needed space because I was angry at them. I set boundaries. She said I was shutting her out emotionally. She couldn't fight me on facts, so she started twisting the emotional terrain, feeding the kids soft poison. Quiet sabotage. But I was ready. I'd been journaling everything. Voice memos. Calendars. Timestamped texts. I had a log of every time she missed an event, every time she made a snide comment in front of the kids, every passive-aggressive little landmine she planted in the house. But none of it hurt like what came next. One afternoon, our youngest, 10 years old, asked me over dinner, "Why don't you love mommy anymore?" I froze mid-chew. Looked up. Her eyes were wide and innocent, holding a question that didn't belong to her. I didn't need to ask where she heard it. She said you stopped hugging her and that's why she's sad, she added, stabbing at her vegetables. I put my fork down. Took a breath. Everything inside me wanted to storm into the other room and confront her right then and there. But I didn't. Because that's what she wanted. She wanted a reaction. Wanted the chaos to make me look like the villain. So I looked at my daughter calmly and said, sometimes grown-ups stop being good for each other. But that has nothing to do with how much I love you. Okay? She nodded, small and confused. And that night, after they went to bed, I walked into the bedroom where she still stayed when she wanted to play normal. She was scrolling through her phone like nothing happened. I closed the door. You talked to them, I said. She didn't look up. They deserve the truth. No, I said, voice cold now. They deserve protection. What you're doing isn't truth. It's revenge dressed up as a bedtime story. She finally met my eyes. You're not the victim here. I'm not pretending to be. She stood. You think being calm makes you noble? You're just a coward who can't face what this marriage became. What you turned it into, I corrected. She took a step closer. Eyes narrowing. You're going to die alone. That one hit. Not because I believed it, but because she did. Because that's how she thinks love works. Conditional. Performative. Disposable. I turned to the door, hand on the knob, then looked back one last time. No, I said. You already are. And I left her in that room, surrounded by silence she'd earned all by herself. She stopped talking to me completely. No snide comments, no guilt-tripping games, no venom laced into morning coffee conversations. Just cold, intentional silence. She floated through the house like a stranger renting a room. Dinners were robotic, mornings mechanical. She'd pour cereal for the kids, never for me. Walked past me in the hallway like I didn't exist, eyes never lifting. Her punishment wasn't rage, it was absence. And somehow it hurt worse. But I wasn't staying quiet. I'd learned too much for that. I started talking. To friends I'd distanced myself from. To my brother who had always said, something's off about her. I met with my therapist. I journaled until the pages looked like evidence. I didn't isolate this time. I expanded. The kids adjusted slowly. They started spending more time in the guest room with me, asking to watch cartoons or read bedtime stories there. I never asked why. I knew. Kids may not understand betrayal, but they feel it. One night, my son, 12, asked, "Are we going to live in 2 houses now?" I paused, heart sinking. Maybe I answered. But no matter where we live, nothing about how much I love you changes. He nodded, mature beyond his age. Mom said you're making it complicated. There it was. Again. Her whispers, her narrative. But instead of getting angry, I leaned in. Sometimes telling the truth makes things look complicated. But it's still the truth. That night, he sat next to me and didn't say anything more. Just leaned against my arm like he knew everything he needed without asking. A week later, I filed the final motion. Divorce. Custody plan. Financial disclosures. All of it. I didn't tell her ahead of time. I let her be served. Clean, official. No dramatic speech. I wasn't in the business of giving her more scenes to twist. When the papers landed in her hand, she didn't cry. She didn't yell. She just laughed, bitter and under her breath, like she was still 2 steps ahead. You think this fixes anything? She asked, voice low. No, I replied. But it ends it. And it did. She started packing her things within the week. She tried to be theatrical about it. Loud zippers, slamming drawers, leaving picture frames face down on the tables like she was marking her territory with broken nostalgia. But I didn't flinch. I didn't give her the satisfaction of reacting. What she didn't realize was that I wasn't afraid of being alone. I was afraid of staying chained to someone who made me feel like a ghost in my own home. And finally, that fear was gone. She moved out on a Thursday. No announcement. No goodbye. Just a moving van in the driveway and strangers carrying out the furniture we picked together years ago. As if it all meant nothing. She didn't look at me once. Not when she took the espresso machine she never let me touch, not when she packed up the framed wedding photo from the hallway, not even when she pulled the front door shut behind her for the last time. The silence she left behind wasn't peace. It was hollow. The kind that sinks into the walls and stares back at you at 2 a.m. I didn't cry. I didn't even sit down. I cleaned the house. Every corner. Every drawer. Every room that still smelled like her perfume. I scrubbed the bathroom tiles until my knuckles went raw. I took down the photos. I boxed up every card, every anniversary gift, every reminder of the lie I'd been living in. And then I stood in the center of the kitchen, the same kitchen where she'd once smiled at me like I was the only man alive, and realized I didn't miss her. I missed the version of me who believed in her. That night, I sat outside on the porch with a bottle of root beer and my dog curled up beside me. The stars were out. Quiet sky. No phone buzzing. No forced conversations. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was performing. It was the calmest I'd felt in years. But the next morning, the message came. It was from a mutual friend. Someone who used to host game nights with us back when we pretended to be that couple. She's saying you cheated first. That you pushed her away. That this whole thing is your revenge. I stared at the screen. There it was. Her final twist. She didn't want me back. She didn't want reconciliation. She just couldn't stand the idea of not being the victim. So now she was rewriting the ending. In her version, I was the villain who forced her to seek comfort in someone else's arms. A man so emotionally bankrupt, she had to lie. Could have fought back. I could have blasted screenshots, called up every friend, started a war. But I didn't. I just replied, let her say whatever she needs to. I know the truth. The rest doesn't matter. Because that's what healing looks like sometimes. Not loud. Not righteous. Just choosing not to drown in someone else's fiction anymore. 3 weeks after she moved out, I got a knock at the door. Not a text. Not a call. A knock. Middle of a Saturday afternoon. Sun shining. Neighbors mowing their lawns. Kids riding bikes. Normal day. Until I opened the door and saw him. Not some stranger. Him. The man from the messages. The one she said I didn't need to know about. The one who told her she still smelled like him. And there he was, standing on my porch in a button-down too tight for his chest and a smirk that told me he wasn't here by accident. You got a minute? He asked like we were old friends. I didn't say a word. Just stared at him. I figured you should hear it from me, he said, stepping forward without an invitation. She's been saying a lot of things. To a lot of people. I didn't move. Not even a flinch. Just let him hang himself. She told me you were unstable. Controlling. She made it seem like you were dangerous. Still silent. She said you'd threaten her. That's why she stayed with me. He laughed lightly, almost apologetic. I think she wanted me to feel like I saved her. I finally spoke. You didn't. He looked surprised. What? You didn't save her. She was never in danger. She just needed someone stupid enough to believe her story while she used him as an excuse. He blinked. Twice. Then he nodded slowly. Yeah, I figured that out. Eventually. I stepped out onto the porch, closing the door behind me. So what do you want? I asked, voice steady. Not angry. Not curious. Just done. He looked at me, eyes not so smug now. I just wanted you to know I'm out. Whatever she told you. I believe you. All of it. I gave him a look that ended the conversation. I don't care what you believe. You knew she was married. That's all I ever needed to know about you. He looked like he wanted to say more. But he didn't. He walked off the porch, back to his car. Drove away. I stood there a long while after he left. Not because of him, but because of what it meant. She'd been working behind the scenes even now. Even after signing the divorce papers. Still twisting the story, still painting herself in soft light and me in shadows. That night, I opened my private file, the one I never showed anyone. The one with her emails, her private social profiles, all the little threads I pulled on while she thought I was too broken to fight back. And I found something new. A draft email never sent. From 2 months ago. Written during the thick of our unraveling. Addressed to one of my clients. Accusing me of unethical behavior. Personal attacks laced with subtle legal threats. She never sent it. But she wrote it. She had planned to sabotage me professionally if I fought her too hard. If I didn't just roll over and let her rewrite the ending. That was all I needed. I printed it. I filed it. And I made one final call to my lawyer. Change the custody request, I said. Full physical. Full legal. No more sharing the wreckage. No more letting her weaponize lies to soften her own guilt. This time, I wouldn't just walk away clean. I'd walk away with everything she never thought I'd have the strength to fight for. The courtroom wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no gavel slamming. Just fluorescent lights, papers being shuffled, and the slow drip of finality. She sat across from me at the table, professionally dressed, face neutral. Her lawyer leaned in every few minutes to whisper something she pretended to care about. But I wasn't watching the lawyer. I was watching her. She didn't look nervous. She looked entitled. Like this was just another step in the process of her getting what she wanted. Less consequence, more narrative. The mask was back on. Soft voice. Sad smile. The misunderstood woman who just wanted peace. But this time I had the truth in my hand, and a custody request that shattered her last illusion of control. My lawyer spoke first. Laid out everything. Calm, measured, methodical. The receipts. The timestamps. The messages. The behavior after separation. The manipulation of the children. And finally, the draft email, her quiet attempt to assassinate my character from the shadows. She flinched when that came up. She hadn't expected that one to surface. Her lawyer scrambled. Started pushing the emotional angle. Said she'd been under intense mental strain. That she acted out of trauma. That she never intended harm. The judge didn't buy it. She was forced to speak. Not in rehearsed statements, not filtered through her lawyer. Her own voice. She looked at me. For real, maybe the first time since all of this began. I was hurt, she said, voice barely above a whisper. And I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't say a word. Just stared back. Because now, in front of people who didn't love her, who didn't owe her anything, she couldn't twist the story anymore. The weight of it was real, heavy, and finally visible. When it was my turn to speak, I kept it short. No one's perfect, I began. But not everyone lies like it's a reflex. Not everyone builds a family then abandons it one betrayal at a time and calls it self-discovery. She didn't just break trust, she burned it. And then she tried to bury the ashes under fake smiles and half-truths. I turned to the judge. I'm not asking for revenge. I'm asking for stability. For my kids. For myself. For the peace she couldn't live with because it didn't revolve around her. Silence followed. A long one. Then the judge made the ruling. Full physical custody. Full legal custody. Her visitation limited, structured. Neutral drop-off location. No room for chaos. It was done. She didn't say goodbye. Didn't look at me. She gathered her things and walked out of that courtroom like she hadn't just lost the last piece of the life she swore she controlled. Outside, the air felt different. Not lighter. Not better. Just real. For the first time in over a year, I wasn't managing a lie. I wasn't treading water in someone else's illusion. I was standing in the wreckage, but it was honest wreckage. And I could rebuild from that. So, if you're reading this, if you're the guy sitting in silence at 3 a.m. wondering if you're losing your mind, hear me, you're not. She just needed you quiet so her story sounded believable. Speak. Stand. Dig until you have the whole truth. And when you do, don't waste it trying to fix the person who broke it all. Use it to build what comes next. I am. And it's already better than anything I left behind.